Welcome to our morning show get-together on WRCO Radio. We have author Katie Allbaugh in the studio with us today to talk about a brand new book, Serenade of Sirens, The Lost Boys of Tosa. And we are glad to have you in the studio. How long has it been since your last book?
It's been since 2023. So we did a show about Borgia Rose in 2023.
And Borgia Rose has been pretty successful for you, hasn't it?
It has been popular, especially in this area, because, of course, it was written about the Richland County area. And, it took off pretty well.
As I was preparing for the show, I was doing a little reminiscing because I'm working on my Saturday night show this week in 1983. Do you recall where you and I were in the fall of 83?
1983 would be the year that I graduated from Ithaca High School. In the fall, probably football homecoming?
No, wrong.
Oh!
We were in a production of You Can't Take It With You.
We were.
And
You're
we were
right.
And we were both on the morning show, and I believe Steve Kennedy interviewed us, and so it's really wild how life turns. You know, we were on the morning show, and now here we are on the morning show again.
You know, life has a way of kindly repeating itself sometimes, especially the good things.
The good things, that's right. But I was reminiscing about, our time at the campus and working with people like Gene Burkett, and Jim Agard was in that play with us, You Can't Take It With You, and all of the professors there. And I think about that, and of course you're a creative person, and I try to be, but I mean, they did such a good job of nurturing and encouraging and things like that, didn't they?
That is so true. I saw that Gene was in a Community Players production recently. And I was so excited for her, because anyone who has ever acted on the stage while Gene directed or was a part of a production, we gained so much. We gained so much from her and from all the other people that surrounded us. And you mentioned Jim Agard, and there were so many people in that show. I know one of our former teachers from Ithaca, Paul Murphy, was in that show. And I always joke, I was technically engaged to Phil Nee before June Nee was. We actually played an engaged couple in that one.
On the stage we were.
Right,
exactly.
Right. Only on the stage, folks.
Oh, those are good times. Fast forward to now, and you've been busily writing. I mean, did you ever see yourself when you were back in high school and college and thinking about being an author someday?
I honestly didn't see that. I was very busy with forensics and speaking. We were talking earlier about Mr. Bob Pilla, wonderful, wonderful instructor at Ithaca, who led Ithaca forensics teams. And I was so frightened when I first tried out that, for one thing, my brother had to go in and tell them that I wanted to be in it. But, Mr. Pillow was so encouraging and all of those things. So it was more towards the speaking end of things and theater and things like that. But after a lot of years of teaching, I suddenly found my voice with the writing, and I'm really enjoying it. So.
Do you ever think of Mr. Pillow when you're writing something and you're like, wait a minute, that's not the proper English, or that's not the right sentence?
Always. I can still see that red pen. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because it sharpened us. It helped us to learn the proper way to do things.
Well, I know that you've written some very unique books here so far. If people haven't read Face Down and Rising Sun or The Poisoning of Richland County Borgia Rose, but tell us about the style that you write in, and, they're based on truths, right?
Right. All three books are inspired by actual events, and all of them are historical. They kind of fit in the genre of historical mystery, suspense, because you never quite know what's going to happen. But I take a kernel of truth of an event that did happen, and usually in Wisconsin history thus far. And then I build on that. And what I'm trying to do is put a story around that. And that's where the fiction part of it comes, because, you can go from newspaper reporting, and you can take all of the facts. But if you write a book just about the facts, history teachers might want to read it, but other people might put it aside. So that's the part where the fiction comes in, and you build a story around them so that people hopefully feel like they were a part of that they could walk back in 1890 and walk the streets of Richland Center at that time when Rose Zaldowski was actually here.
How did you get the inspiration for the new book, Serenade of Sirens?
My oldest daughter, Michelle, lives in the area of Wauwatosa, beautiful area right outside of Milwaukee, and the just the feel of that little town, and back in the 1920s where this book is, that's the setting. There was just such a unique feel, almost European. It reminds me a little bit of New Glarus. If you've ever been to New Glarus, they have a wonderful feel to that town. And just doing a little digging in the history, and suddenly there was a major news item that popped up in the 1920s, and I followed that out a little bit. It takes a lot of research for any of these books, so I did my research and thought this is a story that needs to be told.
And so where do you start with something like that? Do you do the research first, or do you have the story in mind?
Yes. I always appreciate it. I have people, even with this brand new book, they will come back and tell me that I read it and it was only 24 hours. I read the whole thing. I stayed up, and that's exciting. I'm so glad they enjoy it. But then sometimes their next question is, when is the next book? And I'm here to tell you that's going to be about 2 years or so because of that research. You want to start with really solid research and a lot of it, so that you do have, really even though it's fiction, you have most of your facts straight, and you have maybe the feel of that time period and the language and how they spoke to one another. So it takes a lot of research, and by the time I can actually start the writing of the book itself, that flows so freely because you've done so much homework. You feel like you're in that time period.
So you have the moments in history in your mind, what you're going to do or where you're going to go, but then you just sit down and start tapping out a story, and it just kind of comes to you as you go?
There's some of it that comes as I go. There's some of it that I've plotted out a little bit, and especially the characters, because you have to be careful. You have one character, especially if you've just created them, and you have to, they have this color hair, and you can't change that in the middle of the book because the reader will notice. In fact, I had one mistake that I made just before publishing. I had the wrong color of eyes on one character and realized it at the last second. The publisher was great, said, we can fix it. We'll fix that sentence. But I said, there's a reader out there who will notice that. And I'm glad of that they pay that close of attention. But I think one of my alpha readers and a copy editor, she said, you have a genre where you take a real story, and it could be a mystery of trying to figure out, and you give a possible solution in fiction to that, what could have happened.
Well, without giving too much away, can you kind of give us a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of the story?
I can. This one, again, is set in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and July 1925, a sweet little 8-year-old boy, Buddy Schumacher, and that is the part that is inspired by a real event. He left his home and, in the morning, was going to go to a local swimming hole and disappeared in broad daylight. And, of course, 1925, kids did I play outdoors all day long, and you don't see him again until it's supper time and you hear the screen door. But this little boy just disappeared, and everyone began searching for him. The Wauwatosa Police Department was involved right away. And in this version, they find a witness and someone who possibly saw Buddy that day. She might know something about what has occurred. Her name is Addie St. John, and a beautiful young lady. She wants to help them. And the only difficulty in this is that Addie is a patient at the Milwaukee County Insane Asylum. And the asylum does and did run parallel into the village of Wauwatosa. The Menominee River runs through Wauwatosa, and the county grounds, which Frederick Hospital is built on now, they were right there. So the asylum was right there, she was right there, and she claims to know what might have happened to this boy. And the police officers are dubious. They don't know whether she really understands what might have happened. And as I wrote in the back cover blurb, is it truth or is it another one of her serenade sirens? Or Siren Serenade. That would work better.
Mm-hmm. And thus the title of the book.
Right.
Right. So obviously they probably don't regard her or her story very highly, that it's not really a lead.
Most of the department does not, but there is one or two detectives who really think she may be onto something, and they get involved, by trying to find out if Addie is a viable witness, and the rest of the women that she lives with in the area that of the asylum that she lives, and all of them have stories which kind of depict some of the ways that particularly women were treated if they were thought to have mental illness at the time. And so you get not only Addie's story, but you get several different women. But these officers learn to trust them and find that, honestly, sometimes towards the end of the book, we wonder if they were in the asylum to protect the community from them, or they were in the asylum to protect them from the community at times. So it takes several twists and turns, and you never quite know what's going to happen.
The life, if you were institutionalized in 1925, I'm guessing it was the conditions were probably horrendous, weren't they?
The conditions were very bad. There was a change in Wauwatosa that did happen late 1920s into the 1930s, and it improved somewhat because of several different doctors who came in and said, basically, you can't treat another human being like this. But people were institutionalized, especially women, for things as trivial as there were people that immigrated into our country. One young lady that I knew of, she spoke German and didn't understand them, so they thought she must not be in her right mind. They didn't stop to think she was just speaking another language and could not understand them. And they put her in the insane asylum. There are other instances of men who, after a set number of years, decided, honestly, to trade their wife in for a newer model. And that was one way to do it, was to commit your wife, because as a male, they had the full authority to be able to do that. They could commit their wife at any time. And quite a few instances of men who committed their wife to the insane asylum, and they didn't have mental illness.
Horrible time in our history.
It is. It is. And I think hopefully through, even though this is a work of fiction, taking a close look at some of the things that have happened so that we don't have those things repeat themselves, and that we take some of or all of the stigma away from people who are struggling with any form of mental illness, and then we put a more importance on mental health for everyone, that we make sure that our neighbor's doing okay, and try to provide ways for each other to do that.
How did you do the research on some of the things, as far as the institution and some of the things that were going on back then?
That's a good question. So the institution that's portrayed in Serenade is not only just, the Milwaukee County asylum, but it would have been kind of a overall view of many of the asylums, including one that was in New York State called Blackridge. And there was a young woman, it was the late 1800s, early 1900s. Her actual name was Elizabeth Cochran, but she was an actress and a journalist, and she called herself Nellie Bly or Nellie Brown. And she actually faked insanity to be committed to one of these asylums so she could report on what was going on in there. And some of the research that I read from her, it was mind-blowing, it was staggering, it was, how can one human being do this to another? But not only that, that people were being committed for reasons that were just appalling, but that some people, that ran many of these institutions felt that these poor individuals were less than human, that they could conduct experiments on them. Many of us think, all of the things that happened in Germany began in Germany. Some of that began in institutions in the United States. And just different experiments that they would conduct on these people because they felt they were not even a full human being, which is absolutely appalling. So just trying to, I guess, give a glimpse of some of the history so that, again, we don't repeat those things, that we do better this time.
For the young boy that was missing, were there accounts and opinions on what actually happened to him?
There were a lot of things. There were probably 4 different ways that this could have gone. The interesting thing that I found in the research was that at that time, and it was very common in the United States, the FBI had not quite been formed yet. That would come a few years later. There wasn't really centralized police effort. And so within that area, probably within Milwaukee County and Waukesha County, in a 2-year period, there were probably 6 or 7 boys who had gone missing. So we very likely could be dealing with someone who had taken all of these different boys. And the precincts just really weren't in the habit of notifying one another. And 2 of the detectives in this book that come from, they're on loan from Milwaukee County, they're more seasoned detectives, they were real people, and they started breaking open the fact that there are more boys missing here. We need to look into what happened.
And back then, probably maybe didn't really believe that someone could do something horrible to another human being.
Exactly. We were still, I believe, at a stage where you just didn't have some of the, I guess, if you will, serial killers and people that like that. I mean, they may have been among us, but they weren't as prevalent as we understand. As a parent, now you understand. You want to raise your children with awareness in healthy ways, not that they're scared of everything, but that they're aware.
The book is called Serenade of Sirens, The Lost Boys of Tosa. Author K.D. Allbaugh is in the studio with us, and we'll have more coming up on The Morning Show. Author K.D. Allbaugh is our guest here on WRC Radio, talking about her latest book, Serenade of Sirens, The Lost Boys of Tosa. Kathy, you've been getting some pretty good reviews.
I have been absolutely astounded with some of the reviews coming back. Not that I feel I didn't write a good book, but the reception, especially editorial reviews that come from professional magazines. I love to hear from the readers the most, just that word of, I really liked it. I would say if people do want to help any author out, to get on Amazon and or Goodreads and leave a review. That really helps the author a lot, and people don't realize that. And takes a couple minutes, absolutely free to do. But yeah, some of the professional reviews coming back, I've been really flabbergasted.
A 5-star review.
5-star reviews, yes. Yeah. 5 out of 5, that's not too bad.
That's pretty good. So to leave a review, you don't necessarily have to buy the book from that source.
No, especially Goodreads, but Amazon as well. They have a review service for, I think, all of their products, and that's their policy. You don't have to buy, but you do have to have used the product. So obviously, you do have to read the book, and please do that. Don't leave a review if you didn't. But yeah, every author will tell you that it really helps on Amazon and those places. It's a great place to use. I obviously prefer the independent bookstores that we have around us. And I would say, go get your books from them and then leave the review on the other place. But yeah, the reviews have been great.
I understand you had a good day at Oakwood Fruit Farm when you were there.
We had a great day. That was my first book signing for Serenade of Sirens. They were so patient. We had a couple times where the book didn't come exactly the date that it was supposed to. So the people there, Judy, Jody, all of those wonderful, great people at Oakwood, they said, no problem. We'll move it to another day. And a very busy Saturday, but oh my goodness, I signed a lot of books and then they bought more books. And then suddenly the next week they said, we need more books, which what a great problem to have. So
is this response similar to the other two books or is it better?
Honestly, with Face Down and Rising Sun, of course, being my first book in the middle of a pandemic, I thought, well, I'll publish it and see what happens. I still appreciate Daniel Miller at Oak Couch. I took a couple books down there and talked to him about it. Sure, bring him down here. We'll put him out. And he put that in his store window next to the newly published Barack Obama book that he had just put out. And I stood out in the snow, rain, outside taking pictures of that book. I was so proud of it. And then a few other bookstores started picking it up and like, yeah, sure, bring us a few copies. So, that was what I had expected. Bourgeois Rose, it was a little bit more. Same bookstores now said, no, you bring that in. The other one sold really well. And now this time, before I even ordered the books from my distributor, I had lists of people who wanted the book as far as orders for bookstores. So it's grown as we go along.
Let's talk about somebody that might be out there wanting to write a book. Maybe they have a book done, but is it easier to get published these days, or is it harder, or how do you look at it?
I think it's a little bit of both. As I see it, the world of publishing has changed dramatically, probably in the last 10, 15 years. Normally, you would get an agent, and the agent would get you with one of the big 5 traditional publishers. It was about the only way to do that. And then, in the last probably 5 to 10 years, there's been the introduction of self-published books. A lot of people who create their book, and many of them go through all of the formatting and everything else that you have to do for a book. They do all of that themselves. I don't do that part myself. So mine is a little bit of a hybrid in that I do some of it myself, but then I have a great team behind me in creative publishing design who takes it the rest of the way. So that has opened up, and I see more authors in Wisconsin who traditionally published their first book, and now with subsequent books, they're self-publishing. It gives the author a little bit more control over what their work is doing and how it's basically how it's given out to the public, because if a publishing company buys your book, it's wonderful. They give you a contract. It's, all of that. They do that work, but they've purchased the rights to it. So you don't own those rights anymore. They get to do, even if they want to change everything, they get to do that. And that's almost like someone taking a Sharpie to one of your children. It's it's a little bit tough. But that option is still a wonderful way to do that. And a lot of people choose to, but there's a lot more of the traditional versus self-published as well.
Not that you get rich doing any of that, but like in that instance where they own the book, you don't get much money other than what you sell it for, right?
You get some royalties. Many times in an advanced contract, if you've sold a lot of books for them, then of course that advanced payment is going to be rather large. And most authors, that's still not going to, if you put it up against a 9-to-5 job somewhere else, we don't make a lot of money. We do this because we really love to do it. But then you get to a certain amount of readership, probably, that's what I would say, and you get Christina Clancy or James Patterson or someone like that. Well, now, of course, they're going to give them a lot of money to write that book. And so, but that section, that amount of people is probably much smaller than most people realize. So if you have that kind of thought in your mind of, oh, wow, they're just out there raking in the dough, not exactly. But it's a great way to, again, it fulfills something in me to tell a story. And so that's the part I really love.
Do you do your own covers?
I don't. I, again, rely on that design for creative publishing design in California. And I give them a lot of input, and I give them pictures and various things. In fact, this time on the back cover, there is a picture of the depot in Wauwatosa that my daughter Michelle took because she is from Wauwatosa. Proud mom moment. And they took it and they made it look antique. And so they put that on the back cover so you can see about the area where little Buddy Schumacher disappeared. So it's been an amazing journey learning even how a book is published. There's a lot to it, and a lot of things that are beyond my scale as far as doing that.
The young woman on the cover is just made up picture?
That's a good question. So the first two covers, those were pictures of actual people that Clara Olson and Rose Zaldowski. And I've had people asking me about the picture on this cover. And I will tell you this, it is Addie St. John. And she's the central character. But this one is a little different than the first two. I'll leave it at that because partly I want you to read the book before I answer fully. I love it when I'm writing. Much of the time, my husband, John, listens to the chapters as I write them. So he gets a kind of day-to-day thing. And he kept asking, extra questions about Addie. And I finally had to break the news to him that she may or may not be real. So, but I was so happy that he really felt like she was a real person.
Well, I'm sure there were people that lived, and had similar stories.
Right.
And really, it's a story, a little bit of survival on her part, isn't it?
It is. I think in any generation of finding your voice and learning to use that effectively, not only for yourself, but for others, advocating for other people and, certain situations. So this is a story, I think, about Addie finding that voice finally and being able to use it in a way that will help many.
I don't want to give away the ending, but is it a happy ending? Or,
I think this is a little happier than especially Borgia Rose. I had some people come back and be like, what? Probably the number one response from Borgia Rose is, I did not anticipate that ending, which gives me just a little bit of yay. But yeah, I think it is a happier ending than Borgia Rose.
And I guess we hope that Addie gets out of this institution.
Both that and finds the way to help the other people who are around her as well. Because like I said, many of those are depictions of people who were institutionalized for things that should never have even been a consideration. And so she tries to help herself, but she tries to help those women around her as well.
Now we have cameras, we have trail cams, we have all kinds of things that would help. Not that somebody can't disappear, but it was a little bit easier back then, wasn't it?
Exactly. There's such a digital print on things anymore. And in many ways, that's a good thing. Because if someone disappears, they even go to asking homeowners if they have a Ring camera, outside. But in 1925, there was nothing like that, And again, it was a time period where they didn't think they needed that. His Buddy Schumacher's parents were absolutely in shock that anyone would even consider this.
Any of his family come forward, or do you think that they will?
Most of them, when I write about a time period, I usually make sure that it is first that it's very respectful to any and all parties involved, but two, that most of the generations have already passed on, so that it isn't painful to hear that story again, because you don't want that to happen either. I've had really wonderful readers say, well, you should do, and it's 10 years ago. I'm like, no, that's too fresh for some of the people who are involved, and out of respect for them, we just wouldn't do that. But no, I have not heard from anyone that is in that the descendants, if you will.
I think about the stories and what good films they would make, and especially the previous Borgia Rose, The Poisoning of Richland County, because that's got everything that people like. It's mystery and who done it. Have you ever envisioned any of these going to the screenplay? I
wondered about it, honestly. For an author, that's another aspect of having film rights for production, either TV or the theater, and that would be fun to just see some of those things. I would as an author insist they do their production and shoot it here in Richland County. Mm-hmm. Go Richland County.
There you go. Yeah, maybe. Hopefully someday. We'll have more from Katie Allbaugh, author, in our studio here for a Friday in just a moment on WRCO. K.D. Allbaugh in the studio with us today, talking about the book Serenade of Sirens, The Lost Boys of Tosa, which is out now and is up for some American Book Awards. It's had some good reviews. I think you have to be pretty proud of that.
I'm always, like I said, I love the reviews from readers first, but those professional reviews are pretty nice to hear.
So I guess the $1 million question, and everybody's asking too, like, what's next? Are you currently working on another one? I
do have like 3-4 ideas in progress, and all of them need to have their initial research done to see if there's a story behind that to tell. So yes, there are 3 or 4 ideas.
You could go to the history room at the Brewer Public Library and probably go through some of the files back then and find some ideas.
They are so extremely helpful. That's a main source for all the historical societies and all the counties around us, but Brewers, they're wonderful there. The whole library is great.
Now, you've been making some appearances.
Yes. Since Serenade of Sirens launched just a couple weeks ago, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind tour, and it's been great. We mentioned Oakwood Fruit Farm. I was in Avoca at the Avoca Mercantile. Cheryl and Steve Deventhal, who are wonderful, their staff there. And then for the first time, I did a book club at the Wild Hills Winery. The ladies at the book club read Face Down and Rising Sun. So they asked me for a discussion, and that was so much fun. I did that recently. And coming up, I do have a signing in McGregor, Iowa at Paper Moon. And that one is actually described in the book this time. I put Paper Moon and one of the bookstore owners in the book.
In the book,
yes,
as a character?
As a character. Oh. I needed this wonderful, older, matured, a little bit sassy lady, and one of the owners, Louise, at Paper Moon, fit the bill completely. So she's in there, and she's a little bit proud of it.
Boy, that's got to be a proud moment. Face Down and Rising Sun, if somebody's reading that and quizzing you, do you ever get thrown for a loop? Like, can they stump you?
I admit, to do this book discussion, I had to go back and read that book. I did it in like a few days, but I admitted to the ladies, I said, it's been 5 years since this book launched, and I've, written 2 other books. I needed the minor details, so in case they wanted to discuss them, I could.
Yeah. Do you find yourself being critical of yourself sometimes when you go back and read things?
There is that, it's like, I might have done this better, or, I could do that. But I found reading Face Down and Rising Sun just falling in love with Clara and her story all over again. It's just such an impacting story.
We hope that a lot of people will pick up the book, certainly different ways to get it. But number one is going to a local bookstore.
Please, yes. We have so many great resources around us as far as our businesses. And if I could, I'll tell you a few of the places you can find it.
You bet.
Daniel Miller at O'Cooch Books here in Richland Center. He took that first book in, and he's been selling books for me ever since. And then also locally, Oakwood Fruit Farm, the retail store there, they have them. Avoca Mercantile has them in Avoca. Eddie Nix up in Viroqua has the Driftless Books Warehouse. That is only open, I think, through tomorrow or this weekend because they closed the warehouse for the winter. But he also owns the other bookstore in Viroqua, Metaphysical Graffiti. So the books will be in Viroqua. Dana at Main Street Books in Reedsburg. Wonderful place. I have them at Arcadia Books in Spring Green. And then, of course, that Paper Moon in McGregor, Iowa. There are various places in Madison and La Crosse that you can also find them. And people sometimes don't realize this, but any bookstore that you go into, you can request a copy. They will order it for you. It's easy to order all three of my books. They'll put it on special order and have it right there for you. And usually if they don't already stock it, the bookstore will stock it after you've asked for them. So that's a way to help as well.
We're very fortunate to have those local brick and mortar bookstores because not every community does.
Not every community does, and they are such a resource in so many ways. And I don't know about you, I love to read and I have, the electronic readers, the tablets, but I'd rather pick up a book and just read it. And I love to walk in a bookstore and just get lost in all the books around me. In fact, one of my favorite things to do with my grandson now, who's 5, is to take him in a bookstore and turn him loose because he loves books already. And Grandma loves that.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Nurture that early.
Mm-hmm.
But your writing is a good combination between fact and fiction,
Right.
And I think somebody that likes both, it kind of goes right down the middle, doesn't it?
I hope so. I tend to write with a lot of detail, but that is so that reader will feel immersed in that story. I love it when readers come back. Borgia Roses happen that way. I'll walk downtown on Court Street and I'll just feel like, this is where Rose walked. This is what she did. And it's like, I love that part.
Yeah. Some of the buildings are still there, honestly.
Right, exactly.
One of the reviews of your latest Serenade of the Sirens, a chilling, richly detailed, and deeply emotional ride. It broke my heart, made me furious, and left me in awe of Addie's fight to be heard. Kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
I love it, yeah.
Possibly somewhere down the line you can write, the tale of the salty whipped topping back in 1981 at school lunch. Kind of get behind some of those mysteries at Ithaca.
Some of those Ithaca mysteries are they should be heard, and some of them should never be heard again. So I guess we just have to decide which ones. Although I will bring up, because it is October 31st, I have a certain, it's a cassette tape in my possession, somewhere in my house. I don't remember where it is, though. And it's called Marty and the Corn Dogs, in which a certain Phil Nee would sing.
Uh-huh. And Marty Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Two really, really credible gentlemen these days.
Honestly, yeah. So I've just always kept that in case I was called to be a state's witness or, something. I don't know.
Oh, boy. I think you better burn that.
No, great memorabilia.
Well, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. It's good to know you.
Same here, Phil Nee.
K.D. Allbaugh joining us, the author of Serenade of Sirens, The Lost Boys of Tosa. In fact, you can walk right down the street and get it today at O'Cooch Books and Libations. This is The Morning Show.